Next, I would like to invite the delegate from Republic of Korea, Mr. Yang Dong-hoon. He is director from the Public Interest Whistleblowing Inspection and Policy Division, ACRC. Please.
I'd like to explain one of the major case of whistleblowing reporting and one of the survey conducted by ACRC. First, one of the case I'd like to introduce you is the corruption case in the public sector. As I mentioned in the morning, Korea's whistleblowing system is divided into corruption and public interest violation. In this example is the corruption case. Korea's example of whistleblower protection case in the public sector I'll show you is corruption by CEO of a public corporation in a local area in the procedure of employment. Before the job interview, the CEO of the company told the head of the Department of Human Resources to hire two of the applicants by manipulating their interview scores, and one of them were finally employed. A whistleblower disclosed the material containing the CEO's misconduct in the employment, the local media, through his friend, and then made a corruption report to the ACRC. The company dismissed him for the reason that he violated keeping the confidentiality of work-related issue. Because before making the report to the ACRC, he had disclosed the material containing the misconduct to the media. Under the Anti-Corruption Act, if the content of a report is already disclosed by the media, handling of the reported case may be discontinued. Sorry. The ACRC interpreted this provision that a third party is prohibited from making a report of a case disclosed by media. So the ACRC saw the whistleblowers reporting making a report of corruption under the Anti-Corruption Act. So we requested the company's CEO to revoke the dismissal of the whistleblower. This case is very important procedure of our ACRC's manipulating the anti-corruption whistleblower. Because the example I introduced is the first case that the ACRC considered the report as a corruption report and provided the protection for the whistleblower, even though the report was made to the ACRC after it had been made to the media. We expect that this case will make a significant impact on the promotion of corruption report through the society. And I want to introduce the results of a survey conducted by the ACRC. Public awareness, according to the survey, the public awareness on the public interest whistleblowers protection system in our government is quite low, with 30%, only 30%. As for the stumbling block to reporting public interest violation, the fear of facing disadvantages as a result of the reporting is the highest, with around 50%. So the ACRC is working to strengthen promotion of the whistleblower protection system, as well as to amend the rules and regulations to provide a stronger protection system, including remission of criminal liability, prevent whistleblowers from suffering disadvantages. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Young. And next, I would like to invite the delegate from Malaysia, Farizad. He is the superintendent from the Anti-Corruption Commission. Yes, please.
Thank you, Ms. Chen Wenqi, our moderator for today, to all distinguished panelists and speakers, as well organizers and ladies and gentlemen. As introductions to me, my name is Farizal Muzaffar Hafiz bin Abdul Wahab, and you guys can call me Farizal because I have such a long name. Okay, firstly I would like to say thank you for having me here on behalf of Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission, or known as MACC, so that I can share our experiences and the best practices in dealing with whistleblower protection. Okay, so maybe you can go to the next slide, please. Okay, this is an overview. To share Malaysia's experiences in whistleblower, I will take you through the implementations, initiative taken by MACC, and our experiences in handling whistleblower cases. So Malaysia introduced and enforced Whistleblower Protection Act, or known as Act 711, after it passed by Parliament on the 10th of June 2010, and it only came into force on December 15 in the same year. So they are basically the main objectives up there. So next please. So basically the Act is coordinated by Legal Affairs Divisions, which is under Prime Minister's Department of Malaysia, and it led by 7 lead enforcement agencies, comprises of MACC itself, Immigrations Department, Customs, Malaysian Royal Police, we have Road Transport Department, Securities Commissions and Companies Commission. However, the Act also applies to both from both sectors, public and private as well. Okay. A little bit of elements in this Act. We have 2 elements in Whistleblower Protection Act, or known as 711 Act, which is improper conduct and detrimental actions. I believe we have shared same definitions on this. Improper conduct means that any actions that constitutes to disciplinary offence, such code of business ethics in private, or general orders in public service, and a criminal offence such as MACC Act or Penal Code. So whereby the second element is detrimental actions, which includes actions of intimidation or harassment, interference with lawful employment or livelihood, intimidation or harassment, actions that cause injury, loss or damage, or any kind of threats. Okay, next slide. So basically we provide 3 kind of protections to whistleblower in Malaysia, which is the first one, confidential information, and of course the identity of whistleblower itself. And then we provide protections for immunity from civil and criminal actions. And the last one, detrimental actions, of course. So under Section 10 on this Act, it stipulates that a person who commits an offence shall be liable to a fine of not exceeding 100,000 Malaysian ringgit, or equivalent to 24,000 US dollar, or to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 15 years or to both. And for your kind information, ladies and gentlemen, we have no case right now. We still have 0 convictions till now on whistleblower protections. Okay, I want to share, there are some provisions in this Act cover for revocations of protections. Basically, we have 6 subsections under this, which is protection of whistleblower can be revoked if he himself participated in the improper conduct, and then he willfully provided a false statement. Third, the disclosure is frivolous and vexatious, which is there are 3 things in these subsections. The said improper conduct are subject to a proceeding in the court, or there are already investigations carried out, or the information obtained have no solid grounds at all. Right? And then the disclosure questioning the government policies. The disclosure was made for a motive sought to avoid from dismissal or any other disciplinary actions, and he himself committed an offence under this Act. Okay. Basically, in Malaysia now we had implemented 2 kind of practices or methods known as CIP, or Corporate Integrity Pledge, which is covered for private sectors mostly. Okay, even though Malaysia has yet to have any solid citation or preceding case on whistleblower, we are still doing our best to promote for initiative relating to whistleblowing. One of the initiative is of course CIP, as I mentioned, to private sectors to promote good business environment, which is based on 5 guiding anti-corruption principles. Basically, there are 10 anti-corruption initiatives that implemented and introduced by MECC, which is one of its whistleblowing policy. Okay, and then second is ABMS, or we know as Anti-Bribery Management System, which is launched recently last month, if I'm not mistaken. It is new approach known as for ISO 37001 for certification scheme. It's basically as a design, as a guidance to prevent, detect, respond to bribery, and to comply with laws and regulations, including whistleblowing aspect in the organizations. So it will benchmark actually your organization's integrity and gain the competitive advantage with lots of benefits, and of course involve auditing a certain process, such like auditing, recommendation and approval, issuance of certifications and surveillance, and the certification process. Okay, I believe we having similar situations about whistleblower against witness and confidentiality and disclosure, as what my friend Mr. Mentioned just now. Mr. Carl, was it? Mentioned just now. Okay. So based on our experiences, there are extremely minimal understanding among public, as well as enforcement officers and agencies, particularly on whistleblower protection. What happens, the main boundary is skepticism or trust to the agencies, and mostly they prefer to channel their information to other parties by using social media, for instance. This is a challenging situation for all enforcement agencies, including us, MECC. And then the perception towards independency and the credibility of enforcement agencies at any time was relatively low. Therefore, how are we going to tackle or handle investigations and protect whistleblowers who had disseminated the information at large? And sometimes they are often confused between becoming a whistleblower or a witness. Normally, they tend to provide an information but won't proceed or prepare to become a witness. And apart from Act 711, we also introduced Act 696, which Witness Protection Act. In Malaysia, we can convert whistleblower to a witness under this act. Okay. Okay, next slide, please. As what we mentioned, disclosure versus confidentiality. Proving corruption often involves breaking laws with confidentiality provisions. Fighting corruption versus legal. We also encounter few experiences when it comes on disclosure of information that has a legal capacity. As well, we know that to prove corruption case, it involves both parties, giver and taker. Both of them gain something from the transactions. And in corruption cases, a lot of information need to be proved by documentation, of course. But somehow all the documentations given is confidential, such as under government's document, they are covered under OSA or Official Secrets Act. Or in banking, they covered under Financial Services Act. Okay? So by disclosing them, it will subject to an offense under the particular act. Okay? So the question is how to protect the whistleblower who disclosed the information, and in the meantime, he was also subject to an offense for disclosing the document. So normally, next slide please. Normally, whistleblower who engage in MECC cannot explain the corrupt act in specifics. Often they rely from others' knowledge and not giving solid information. And then whistleblowers are only supposed to explain the nature of the corrupt act in very general terms. There are risks if too much details are shared, such as whistleblower identity may be exposed unintentionally. Thus, the enforcement agency will then investigate by their own intelligence gathering. And of course, it requires more time, cost, and expenses. Right? So let me share with you two cases that we investigate under the whistleblower case. Case number one is known as Obster. The informant worked in a branch located in foreign country and communicated with MECC officers in December 2014. He informed that he was instructed to approve payment for improper job of an appointed contractors by his superior. And after several agreements with his superior, he was terminated in July 2015, and we met him after his termination. The issues here when does protections take place? When he first communicated with us in December 2014, or when we first met him after his termination, which is in July 2015. So we have one citation case, Nur Azina versus public prosecutor. It was then cited that protections to whistleblower took place whenever the information has been communicable. So therefore, in this case, protection took effect in December 2014 when he first communicated with us. So as for the findings, we propose a remedy to the court under Section 15 of this Act. And we also found out that the reason of termination are not justifiable, and sum of 1.3 million Malaysian ringgit has been transferred actually to the subject's account. So we think it's very doubtful. Okay, so the ones under improper conduct investigations. So I will share our second case. It is related to a government agency in northern part of Malaysia. We received information from two protected whistleblowers about employer who received bribery from contractors in October 2016. So the investigations on improper conduct commenced in mid-November 2016. But please bear in your mind, even though the amounts are small, around 12,000, he received 12,000 bribe money, but it happens frequently. Okay, so both whistleblower was transferred to other branch, which was approximately 500 kilometers away, and some isolated and secluded area. So the employee used his capacity as director for the seat transfer, and we have carried out the detrimental action investigations, and the findings were very favorable. Concurrently, both two whistleblowers have also requested two senior management for relocations to other branch nearby their home, and has been granted. As such, whistleblower requested to KIV the case. Nevertheless, whistleblower acknowledged MACC for the protections provided. This case has proven that MACC has successfully given protections to the whistleblower. So now let me share you the statistics. Since whistleblower was implemented back in 2010, so I have with me statistics for MACC from the year 2011 until as at May 2017. So we have a number of 147 whistleblower protected who apply to us, and we only give the, please look at the column number 1, denotes for that. And the second column denotes the number of whistleblowers who are protected by MACC. There are 136 for the years 2011 until May 2017, which is the difference of about 11 whistleblowers who seek protection is due because of revocations of protections under section 11. Sorry, all right. So, as a summary, I have shared Malaysia's perspective, and we know that it's so challenging we have faced in whistleblower cases. So I'll end up my presentations. Thank you.
Thank you, Farizar. He spotted a very good point that the whistleblower is not equal to the witness. Thank you. And next, Rebecca Rose from New Zealand would like to show her experience. Let's welcome Rebecca.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon everyone, as we might say, New Zealand, kia ora koutou. And firstly, thank you to Chinese Taipei for the hospitality. I'm feeling very welcome, as I'm sure we all are, and this has been, it's not even halfway through, a very, very informative workshop. So, New Zealand perspectives on whistleblowing, I've got 10 minutes to try and run you through that, so I'll do my best. Firstly, our agency is responsible for complex of serious fraud, and we have had the mandate for corruption since 2010. So New Zealand's relatively young in terms of investigating and prosecuting corruption, which does limit some of my information to an extent. In order to set the scene, I should probably just confirm there are 4 million people in New Zealand. That's our whole population. Where I live in Auckland, there's 1.4. So bear that in mind when I talk about things like amounts of money and penalties and that sort of thing. But also bear that in mind when we talk about one incident and think about how much impact that can have in a small country, especially with globalisation and the amount of trade we're now doing overseas. We are part of a public sector in New Zealand, which is governed by the State Services Commission, who run a code of conduct that we are all expected to sign up to and follow, and that determines our behaviour in the public sector. We signed UNCAC in 2003, like many countries, but we recently only ratified it in 2014 when we changed some of our anti-bribery and corruption legislation. So again, just kicking off, we're just about finished phase 1 of our review there. So a little bit young, but we're still fairly proud of our track record. If we just move to cases, I thought I'd start with these, and I've selected 3 quite different ones for different reasons. And as I said, these all had a massive impact, I was going to say, in different parts of New Zealand, and not only geographical, but in different industries. So at the top there, earlier this year, we had one of the leadership team at the Ministry of Transport, so our National Transport Ministry, plead guilty to fraud charges. Now, the amount of money was maybe 700,000 New Zealand dollars, which, okay, that's not much. It's about $500,000 US. But again, public sector funds in New Zealand, there's not many to go around, so it was fairly serious. And I raised that one because at the moment there's a retrospective look into how whistleblowers in that ministry were treated, because there's allegations that they brought suspicions and concerns to the right people, but they were ignored, and then the offender was involved in restructuring, which then saw them lose their jobs. So obviously some fairly serious allegations there. It came to us through actually good processes, improved processes I should say, and that's how we got the case, but obviously there's some work to do in that ministry and probably a little bit more in the wider public sector. That one was tricky. She had been previously convicted. She worked in the private sector in an insurance company, been convicted and got name suppression due to a sympathetic judge based on some mental health issues. So that made it a bit tricky. She was also multinational. She was English, one in Australia, ended up in Canada when we found her. So that was tricky. She ended up pleading guilty, which means she got a reduced sentence, which happens in New Zealand, 3 years, 6 months. So a lot of work, a lot of pain for not too many years in prison, but some massive lessons there. A little earlier than that, in Auckland, obviously the biggest city in New Zealand, we had 3 people convicted of bribery offences relating to a roading contractor, which was a systemic example where someone who had worked in the council set up a little network of people, external and internal, to confuse matters. We had 5 councils merging, so it perpetuated and ended up being a fairly big operation. That one's interesting in that it was brought to our attention by a whistleblower who was part of the offending. So whistleblower to some degree ended up actually as an offender. He was never going to be immune because of his involvement, but he pleaded guilty very early and gave evidence in court, which was very powerful. He got home detention. The others co-offenders ended up in jail for about 5 years. Then another private sector example, a little longer ago, a newly recruited member of the management team who spent, I don't even think, a week at a data company before she got she had some major concerns, and she had to decide whether to disclose, because what she knew that would pretty much spell the demise of the company. So she had a lot to think about in terms of people's jobs, her own, but also, and that was in the midst of a fairly major earthquake we had in Christchurch in South Island of New Zealand. So pretty tough time, and she had a lot to work through, but was very brave, and that offender was sentenced to 8 years in prison. So the fallout of all that, if you call it fallout, I would call it improvement, is that we at the SFO, where I work, have had an increase in whistleblower complaints, which has to be a good thing, because I don't necessarily think the conduct has continued to increase at the same rate. In New Zealand, you can make whistleblowing complaints to a number of agencies, not just us, but in terms of our calendar year, we've had, and bear in mind, small country when I tell you these numbers, 19 complaints, only one of which meets the legislative requirements for a whistleblower, which means it's serious wrongdoing and they're an employee and that sort of thing. But we have seen different increases due to the cases that have just gone through there. And I'll expand a bit more on what whistleblower regime is in New Zealand context. Thanks. So just a little bit more background. We criminalise bribery and corruption in both public and private sectors. Not everyone does that, and the whistleblowing regime also applies to both. They apply to individuals and legal persons, so we can charge a company. and domestically and extraterritorially. So if some part of it occurs in New Zealand, we have jurisdiction. Like my friend to my right, we have whistleblowers and informants and witnesses. Big distinction there, as our whistleblowing regime only offers employment protection. There are other protections for court cases and if the matter goes further. Our Protected Disclosures Act was only really put together in 2000, so not that long ago, but already I would say that it's probably not wide enough, as you've probably picked up yourself, and it is an area we probably need to do some work on. The expectation in New Zealand is that a whistleblower will use the internal channels of their organisation to report, provided they exist and provided that the person involved in that channel isn't part of the wrongdoing. So they can then report to an appropriate authority if those two things are in place. Obviously, we're not going to turn away someone who doesn't want to go through those channels, but what we've seen, particularly from the research Dr. Dozo went through before and that I'll refer to shortly, is that not everyone has a regime and not everyone knows about it and the awareness is pretty limited. So the summary of all that is that we will take complaints regardless of whether they've come through that regime or not. So the protections available, and again in an employee context. So no proceedings can be taken against a person for making a protected disclosure or for referring one to someone like the SFO. Any retaliatory action, they can take a personal grievance under the Employment Relations Act. New Zealand has a very developed and strong employment law, so some of the gaps that might exist elsewhere are covered in that, and it is around protecting a person's role. Also, our Human Rights Act make it unlawful to treat whistleblowers or potential whistleblowers less favourably. I should also add, within the legislation, it talks about a senior public official if their behaviour is overbearing or discriminatory or oppressive. There is an allowance in the legislation for that to be included. So there are remedies under the Human Rights Act, and if the matter is prosecution and goes through court, we have options, either witness protection programs, and our Evidence Act on how people might give evidence, it was referred to earlier through screens and that sort of thing, and a judge has the ability to keep someone's identity confidential if they think they are in danger. It's fairly limited, it doesn't extend to their family and that sort of thing, and the police have a very good witness protection program which can extend wider. However, it is a workaround at the moment, hence my reference earlier to needing to be a bit stronger. Next slide, thank you. Again, thanks to Narissa for her talk earlier. I've sort of put some arrows in to make it a bit different, but I'll talk about it in the New Zealand context here. So Thomas referred to the Corruption Perceptions Index earlier in the ASEAN context. New Zealand is the first equal of Denmark in that, which we're very proud of. However, some of the results here would suggest that we've got some work to do, and I agree completely. I think our biggest risk and enemy is complacency. New Zealanders are fairly relaxed by nature and often wait for a problem to arise before we do anything about it. I'm generalising completely, I should say that's my personal opinion, but I think some of the research already speaks for itself if you look there. In comparison, again, sorry, no, so I don't mean to try and win one over you. I think Australia are 14th maybe in the CPI. So really, it's incongruent with the reality a little bit. So we've got to be vigilant and make sure that we are doing all we can. Also to mention is that in some of the research, there were very, very limited, if any at all, private sector responses. So we see that as a major problem. Obviously, it's not reflected in the CPI, but New Zealand thrives on particularly tourism and trade overseas, so we've got some things to think about there. And so the initial slide, sorry, I should have mentioned, was the strength of processes by sector country, where we've got our government and local government mid-table, we'd like that to be much further up, and then equally sort of just a combined effort, we're sort of still middle of the table there in the Australia and New Zealand research stakes. So from our perspective, we'd like it to be a lot higher. Obviously, got a bit of work to do legislatively, but if we go to that slide, thank you. As I said, still limited and we need development, but we've got some good foundation in that we deal with private and public sector, and we do have some extraterritorial jurisdiction. We also have Crime Stoppers, which sounds a bit gimmicky, but it is a hotline, and again, remember, 4 million people, so we can have just one, which is run by a non-government agency where people can literally make anonymous complaints about anything, fraud, corruption, sexual assault, murder, whatever it might be, and those details are protected, so we do have that mechanism as well. And as I mentioned earlier, established human source intelligence program and witness protection program to look after people should we think they are in a lot of danger. And I think it's a matter of time before we start using that a lot more. In a strategic sense, our agency is leading a corruption prevention work program to enhance our integrity framework and anti-corruption culture, and Marissa's counterparts in New Zealand are working with us on that. We're very early stages. We have an election coming up, so it might speed along quite quickly. But that is actually quite exciting for a fraud and corruption geek like myself to be able to be involved in. And then just a little note there, expectation of APEC, which we'll talk a bit more about tomorrow, but I think really good opportunity here in this group, and obviously a much smaller part of the world, to share information on the ground, a long-term strategy with some practical guidelines. And I think we've mentioned already culture and tone from the top, but if we start to normalise the expectation that there has to be compliance and there has to be a whistleblower, and actually use our peer pressure, make it a bit uncool to not report these things, will go a long way to actually developing that culture we talk about, not just in our own countries, but across the Asia Pacific. And I think protection, again, we've all got different versions of it. Some of us have piecemeal legislation like New Zealand that in there somewhere we've got some good protections, but it'd be good to have some overarching guidelines. So I think hopefully we're going under 10 minutes, but thank you all for your attention, and I look forward to hearing from some of my colleagues.
Manager from the SFO. Thank you very much.